The other day we saw Sony Pictures' Marvel's Dr. Morbius starring Jared Leto. Connor, explain our suffering.
Morbius is a 90-minute movie where we have Jared Leto as a crippled man named Dr. Morbius and his friend Milo, who's also crippled but somehow is the wealthiest man in the world. And Morbius comes up with a cure to cure being crippled by combining your DNA with giant bats, which makes him a living vampire. Mm-hmm. And he tries to resist the urge to feast on the flesh of humans by drinking fake blood. But Matt Smith, also known as Milo, his friend, starts drinking the real blood, also becomes a vampire, and they fight. So Aiden, what did you think of Sony Pictures' Marvel's, against Marvel's will, but the MCU's Michael Morbius?
It's a disaster. It's one of the shittiest things I've seen in a long fucking time. It's a real rough one. Primarily, the story doesn't make sense from the outset, which is a big issue, in that I don't understand why putting bat DNA on his DNA makes him a vampire and gives him the ability to
basically not be crippled and jump around and with weird CGI effects.
Eat people's blood, turn into smoke, or he just has smoke trails.
His powers are very hard to pin down. That's something they didn't really bother to clearly define in the film.
Yeah, they do a really bad job with that. I had no fucking idea what was happening in that fucking rooftop scene. The editing is a goddamn nightmare. This movie feels like it was originally 2.5 hours, and an hour was cut out, but what was cut out is random, because nothing makes any sense. For example, the entire subplot with the cops, one of whom is played by Tyrese Gibbs, and one of whom is some other guy. They are introduced after Morbius kills like 30 people on a boat, and they find a paper crane that he made, and there's a bunch of dead people, and they say this is probably the work of vampires, even though they don't know vampires exist. They don't have any reason to believe that vampires exist. Right. It's fucking ridiculous for them to believe that vampires exist. And then the next time we see them, like 10 minutes later, they're harassing Morbius's nurse, doctor, girlfriend, who was on the ship with him when he turned himself into a vampire by injecting himself with bad DNA. And they say, we know Dr. Morbius is a vampire, and you have no idea how they reached this conclusion or why they would think this. Or anything. It's fucking ridiculous. And they show up at Morbius's clinic and they say, you don't look nearly as crippled from polio as you used to be. And they try to like push him down a flight of stairs, and he's like, oh, they're on to me. So he flies up to the rooftop, and then he's about to jump off the building, and then the wind is too strong and he almost falls off, and then Tyrese Gibbs teleports up there and points a gun at him, but it's already established that he can just dodge gun bullets with his vampire powers. But then he's like, yeah, okay, you can take me to jail. So yeah, half the time I just have no idea what's going on in the fucking movie. And for everything that it seems like they cut out of the movie, they left in like a 5-minute scene of Doctor Who, evil vampire, dancing shirtless and making sexy faces while his face turns into jump scare face.
Well, you gotta keep in mind they also replaced that missing hour and a half of footage with Jared Leto playing wall ball and explaining the plot of the movie to us, because the whole second act got cut out.
Yeah, there's no...
Sony's like, cut out all this boring shit that establishes your powers, the villain, anything that might potentially elevate the plot. Explain all this while you throw a wall ball at the wall, because it has to be 80 minutes so we can do 200 turns in the movie theater.
Yeah, the intro is really fucking weird too, because like the movie claims that Jared Leto is like 25, which is hilarious. And so when he's in like a children's hospital for polio patients because he has polio,
Right.
and Doctor Who has polio, and the hospital they're in is like a 1950s hospital with like stuffed rabbits and wooden wheelchairs everywhere, and they're in like the polio hospital, and then the movie takes place in like 2020 apparently. So this is like 1995 that Jared Leto was in the 1950s polio hospital with polio.
Right. He's like, this
Which
is
was
my
cured,
friend
like,
Franklin D.
80
Roosevelt.
years ago. It's really weird. Oh god, everything about the movie is just
He has an
fucking
nondescript
nuts.
disease that just happens to look like a mixture
It's
of
just
polio
polio.
and cerebral palsy,
It's like polio and AIDS mixed together or something.
basically. Yeah, that's the best descriptor. He has a mixture of polio and AIDS.
So anyway,
Yeah, honestly, the whole flashback sequence looks like a sequence you might see in like a movie like Boy in the Striped Pajamas or something.
it looks like a fucking sequence from like Annabelle 7 or something.
Right.
Yeah, they're just all over the place with whatever they kept and cut. There's like this emotional scene where the doctor from the polio clinic gets stabbed by Doctor Who.
The doctor from the polio clinic, mind you, has not aged a minute in 25 years.
Well, also,
Like,
he
could
just
be
hadn't been in the
fucked,
movie for 40 minutes. And then he gets stabbed, and it's like, damn, that's so sad. We're really supposed to care about this. And then, oh my god, it's all over the place. It's fucking insanity. It felt like it was edited blindfolded. And then there's the post-credit shit, and that's just insanity. It's fucking weird is what it is. Oh god. Yeah, it's awful. It's 90 minutes of absolute confusion and tedium with no entertainment value, and then
The best actor in the movie is Jared Leto,
yeah,
and he's
that
not
says
good.
a lot. Yeah, it says a lot. It's I don't know. It's,
Jared Leto does this too the whole time. He stares blankly and he goes, "I didn't realize I could cure polio by becoming a vampire."
This movie doesn't have a fucking ending, dog. It has the climax, and then within 30 seconds of Jared Leto killing Doctor Who, it cuts to his girlfriend turning into a vampire, and then it cuts to him flying, and then it cuts to the end credits. There's no ending. There's like 30 seconds of teaser for the next movie tacked on immediately after the end of the climax. There's no ending. There's no resolution. There's no end to the story. He kills Doctor Who and then it ends immediately.
It's just another embarrassing Sony moment because you know there's not going to be a sequel.
No, this is fun.
So many,
it's horrible.
Like literally, like yeah, it hasn't been selling. It hasn't been selling. We'll put it that way.
I saw a picture. I'll have to see if I can find it, but I saw a picture and it was someone's Snapchat, and it said there was only one other person at Morbius, and I tried to take a picture to show how empty it was, but accidentally had the flash on, and there's some really fat guy like looking at me. It's really funny. I'll have to see.
That would be so fucking
It's
awkward.
funny. Yeah, imagine just having to sit there for the whole movie.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and then there's the end credits shit, which
Makes no sense and is literally horrible. I mean, you already have the very convoluted Spider-Man No Way Home. We like Spider-Man No Way Home, just so you guys know, but it was very convoluted, the logic of the teleporting and shit, and we explained that. But now, this movie, they're just like, fuck it, whatever.
logic falls apart even further.
We need Michael Keaton to come over. So Michael Keaton comes over, and he's like an anti-hero, or an anti-villain, I guess, in the movie. He's like, he does evil shit for the good of his daughter and his wife. But he teleports to this other universe and is like, fuck it, whatever. I don't give a shit that I got teleported to this other universe. I'm not even going to really do anything about it. And even though I respect Spider-Man enough not to kill him, I know somehow that this dimensional warp had to have been caused by Spider-Man, despite the fact that he comes from a world with like Thanos in it and shit. And I know he was in jail, but he probably heard about Thanos and shit.
This happens like every 3 weeks in the MCU.
Right.
I don't know why he would come to the conclusion that of everyone, it was the guy who stands around in New York and stops purse robbers.
So somehow he gets teleported backwards. My only presumption being that if there was a Spider-Man, the only way I could work it out is that if there was a Spider-Man in this universe, like this was like Andrew Garfield's universe, maybe since he knows who Spider-Man is, it transferred him to another universe. I don't know why.
But
that still doesn't make sense. Well, that also doesn't make sense from the logic, because you'd think like it was very specifically like his Peter Parker. I mean, the logic doesn't make sense in No Way Home, but it makes even less sense here. And then somehow he has a suit, which he made out of Chitauri check, but he has the suit fully intact.
Yeah. That
he made after he gets out of prison for being like an unknown human being. And then he goes, we should team up to fight this Spider-Man guy, Morbius. A character that Morbius wouldn't know about. And Morbius says, intriguing. What the fuck does Spider-Man have to do with Morbius? If he's like, you could use his blood to try to cure you. He maybe like Spider-Man's blood to cure you. Or come up with something, you know?
Like Morbius in this movie.
But he just says intriguing. I don't... Why? He's not even a bad guy, really.
Morbius in this movie, Morbius is just a straight good guy in this movie. He refuses to kill people, he refuses to drink blood, so he drinks weird blue milk because he made artificial blood or something.
Did he get an email or something from Vulture that said, meet me out in the middle of the desert? And why was he in the middle of the desert?
He's a complete good guy, and you'd assume there's only two assumptions to make. Either Dr. Morbius doesn't know who Spider-Man is, and he's just confused and agreeing so he doesn't look stupid. Or he knows who Spider-Man is and should have a positive opinion of him, but for some reason just goes along with this. And all this is just building up to the Sinister Six movie that they're obviously building up. That's probably going to be a fucking
at least like
Amazing Spider-Man.
At least
3.
like Venom. They could have done Venom, you know, and been like, I mean, I guess why would Venom be in the end credits here? But just do fuck it, because Venom's like, I want to meet up with Spider-Man.
Venom's been to the other place.
So Venom's into the other place, and he's like, I want to figure out who fucking Spider-Man is. Like, Morbius has no reason. It makes no fucking sense.
Plus,
it's just like we need
Eddie
this
Brock
character.
is a journalist, so if Venom came up and said, I was teleported to another dimension and you seem like a guy who might be smart enough to do something about it, let's do a thing. That'd make a lot more sense than Vulture
teaming up with Morbius. And why would... Yeah, I know. There's levels to the stupidity of that.
And they're just trying to build up to some Sinister Six Amazing Spider-Man 3 shit. They're just going to shove this in with the good old Andrew
Well, they
Garfield.
literally keep fucking up on the Sinister Six, because I'm guessing we're never going to see Jared Leto as Morbius in another film.
Probably not. But we probably will see Michael Keaton again.
Is Michael Keaton their shoehorned Sam Jackson, their nonsensical Sam Jackson? Like,
I guess they have a Craven
his
movie
character
coming out in like
development?
6 months. I don't even know why they're doing a Craven
do you think
movie.
they must be sweating about the fact that they're making a Craven movie now? Because this
Yeah,
movie is
starring-
made, like, no money.
Starring the granny fucker from Godzilla. It's gonna flop.
Who
far as
also
fuck.
is going to be canon to the MCU now, and also played Quicksilver in the MCU.
Yeah.
He actually also played a third Marvel character, because technically Kick-Ass is creator-owned but published through Marvel. So, he's probably
He's all
played
over
the
the
most
place.
Marvel characters out of anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, the Craven movie, how do you even make a Craven movie? Isn't Craven just a guy who like illegally kills animals that Spider-Man webs up or something?
I think Sony took the wrong message from it, where they're like, look what DC did. We tried to build everything in one movie, so we build around it, and we establish all these characters. But really, all of these movies are just fodder so that they can put together a Sinister Six, and like it's going to be like the Avengers, but for villains. And this time we're going to do it right. But really, they're still doing it wrong. because the movies aren't good. They're like,
So-
these movies are going to be, they're like, we'll just make a whole bunch of 80-minute movies. We'll make a whole bunch of 80-minute movies that, who gives a shit, because we established them. See, we established them, so it's okay. So it's okay that they'll come together and they'll fight Spider-Man of some kind. Whatever Spider-Man we fucking choose at this point, because they're all back, and they're all existing in the MCU, and they can't do anything about
I think the fact that they've been tweeting about Amazing Spider-Man 3 is a pretty clear hint to what their plans are.
Right.
I mean,
It's embarrassing.
hypothetically, we might eventually see Andrew Garfield fight Jared Leto, Michael Keaton, Venom, Craven.
Craven, and well, Madam Web, I guess. They're like any Spider-Man character we can possibly consider even possibly making a movie out of.
Why the fuck, Madam Web? What? The fuck is a Madam Web?
It's that girl from Shattered Dimensions, the crinkly old lady that's like, Spider-Man, I need you. But this time, instead of being a crinkly old lady, she's played by Dakota Fanning or whatever, or Dakota Johnson, or one
So
of those
they're gonna-
Dakotas.
They're gonna do another
I
Spider-Man
think
Dimension
so.
movie.
50 Shades of Grey is going to play Madam Web, yes.
And Madam Web's power
And Madam
is to
Web is
make
getting her own
Dimension thing.
movie. Yes.
So they're gonna make a third Spider-Man Dimension movie? Is this just the Spider-Man thing now?
Spider-Man, they realize that they can just make Spider-Verse over and over again.
Yeah, and Spider-Verse is just a fucking rip-off of Shattered Dimensions. It was the first one, wasn't it?
Yep.
Predates all of them.
Well, actually, that's based loosely on a plot line from one episode of the 90s cartoon. Dan Slott wrote Shattered Dimensions based on an episode of the cartoon. This is my understanding. I'm not entirely sure. So, allegedly, Dan Slott was like, the cartoon's cool, and he made Shattered Dimensions, and then he made the second one with 2099 in him. And then he's like, what if I made this into a comic? So he made a thing called Spider-Verse where they all team up. And then then Sony's like, well, let's do this with Miles to make a cool coming-of-age story, and it worked out really well. And they're like, well, hey, this is a way we can... How do we make a Spider-Man movie as hype as, like, Avengers Endgame is what Sony was thinking. So they were just like, well, we'll bring Peter and Toby back, or Toby and Andrew back. And now Spider-Verse is just what Spider-Man is. There's no such thing as Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, where Spider-Man, like, fights thugs and fights low-level people and has, like, family problems. Spider-Man's a dimensional character who...
No, now
travels
ironically, the cartoon inspired the video games, and then the comics just became the cartoon and video games, and now the video games are just what the comics used to be.
Yep. The video games are the closest thing you'll ever see to standard Spider-Man in media outside of comics ever again. That's just facts. They pretended at the end of fucking No Way Home that Spider-Man's gonna go back to his roots and he'll wear that like one time and be like, oh, my suit got ripped. Good thing I have this suit. Tony Stark's I-95 super fucking conductor suit or some shit.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And then he'll be like, I need help right away. And
I
then
need to
he'll,
find
He'll
MJ.
be like, whoa, what universe did I just pop in? And he'll like pop in the middle of Amazing Spider-Man 3 and he'll be like, 2 Spideys, wow. and then Miles Morales will come out and he'll be like, I'm from another universe, but there's 5 of us now. There's 5 Miles Moraleses.
Yeah.
Wow, Donald Glover is playing.
Well, they
Miles
also have to get
Morales.
Spider-Gwen in there.
Well, Spider-Gwen, they supposedly at one point were making a Silk movie. Silk is a character that Dan Slott created, because everything's off of Dan Slott's shitty run. It's a character where he's like, wow, I'm a girl, but I got bit by the same spider as Peter Parker. Before Peter Parker. But I didn't do anything, and now I'm a superhero.
What do you think the relevance of the canceled Iron Man movie was?
I don't know. Never say never, you know? Well, maybe say never after the box office reception of Morbius. Is it possible? Like, it's so embarrassing that they're going to have to release Craven.
Yeah, it's fucked.
Because it's made. It's like they're
Yeah,
like
it's
shooting
done.
it. Unless they like cut the cut it off now. But how do you?
It's too
They
late.
gotta figure out a way to market. Like Craven's gotta just fight Andrew Garfield.
I saw there was like some big
They
Vanity
just gotta be
Fair
like-
article the other day where they had like a big interview with Aaron Taylor Johnson. I think it's too late. You can't stop.
Do you
this.
think Andrew Garfield's really happy that now he just has all the leverage?
He does have a leverage? He won.
Because Sony's
He won,
like,
man.
please make an Amazing Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, he won. He came out of it in the long game.
He did. He was the best part of Spider-Man No Way Home. He was...
Somehow they're gonna fucking.
It
I can't
all worked
believe-
out for him in the end.
That original lineup of Amazing Spider-Man spin-offs was nearly as awful as the Dark Universes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this new one's not much better with Morbius and Craven. Why are they picking these characters?
Because the thing is, you gotta pick from the B and upper C list Spider-Man characters because, you know, Spider-Man's bound to cross paths with Green Goblin. He's bound to cross paths with this guy and the next guy.
Yeah, I suppose they can't really use ones that the MCU's. Well, I don't think they give a shit, but
I don't think... Yeah, I guess Sony doesn't give a shit, but they're trying to...
Sony just does whatever.
And then Black Cat and Silver Sable are getting movies, and I think one of the some characters getting a TV show on Crackle or whatever Sony has. And it's all connected.
Oh god.
I like when
Fucking
they
shit
did the
show.
shitty insert shot of the crack in the space-time continuum.
Oh,
to,
that looked like ass. I also liked the shitty insert shot of the Daily Bugle that they couldn't cut out.
I love that this movie is MCU canon.
I also like, well,
Because Marvel could never possibly do worse.
yeah, no.
Eternals sucks,
Even the
but,
Eternals is
Eternals sucks for different reasons.
the Eternals is
Because
more
Eternals
boring,
is
but
boring.
also more competent. This is just a mess. This is a
Eternals is
disaster.
competent. It's just boring, and you don't care about any of the characters. Like the acting's fine and all that shit, but you're like, who gives a fuck about this entire ass movie? But this movie is just blatantly incompetent from the structure. You got 3/4 of Act 1 is a flashback. Then
And
you got
it's like
Act 2, which is told in 5 minutes during a wall ball session. And then Act 3 is fucking 60 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the movie.
This movie literally feels like it was edited by RNG. Like it just randomly selected what scenes stayed and what scenes went.
It's so funny how they they didn't even understand basic story structure. Because the third act felt like it belonged in a 3-hour movie. The second act was rushed to the point where it sounded like an elevator pitch for the Morbius movie, because it was a wall ball session. And Act 1 was this fucking horrible flashback with stupid ass child actors that couldn't act and Jared Leto pretending to be handicapped. And of course we have to talk about the controversy of Jared Leto pretending to be handicapped on set.
He's a card.
He's a card.
I'm surprised he wasn't mailing people bags of blood or fucking jizzing on their underwear, whatever.
Yeah. He's like, I think Morbius would jizz on your underwear.
No, he wouldn't say it. I think he would do it, and then he'd leave a note that said, "I think Morbius jizzed on your underwear."
I feel like I can't wait for him to kill somebody in real life and then be like, I think whatever superhero property he's miscast for will. No, but the sad thing is Jared Leto is the best part of this movie.
Yes.
Matt Smith sucks and is probably the second best part of the movie, and everyone else is a horrendous actor to the core. All the cop stuff feels like something out of those made.
Yeah, it's atrocious.
You know, these are really popular right now because everyone's talking about them, but those Bruce Willis movies, I watched those because I got a $3 Bruce Willis box set on Vudu. I watched a handful of them, and it really does feel like when Tyrese Gibbs in this movie feels like when DMX showed up in that Bruce Willis movie. I don't remember which one it was called, but there's one where it was Bruce Willis and DMX teaming up to do a movie. And Bruce Willis shows up for 5 minutes and DMX shows up for 5 minutes, both to get paychecks, and then 50 Cent was there. And it feels like when you
I watched that one with you.
it feels like when they have like a cameo appearance where they're like, here is our most named actor, and it's Tyrese Gibbs. Like, him and Jared Leto.
Does Tyrese even have a fucking line in this movie?
He like says like, wow, did you hear the embarrassing
Because I know
thing?
that, like,
Jared Leto isn't the only embarrassing one. Did you hear that people trolled Tyrese Gibbs into thinking that Martin Scorsese gave Morbius a really good review and changed his mind about hating Marvel movies? And Tyrese Gibbs is like, wow, Martin Scorsese, the legend.
That's funny.
You've heard about all that shit
No.
where Martin Scorsese hates
Yeah, I
fucking
know about all
Marvel
that.
movies.
Yeah, I know.
And
I watch Sardonicast, and every 5 episodes, Adam goes on like a 15-minute rant where he's like, Martin Scorsese's just a boomer who doesn't think Iron Man 2 is the greatest movie of all time. And then he starts sucking down a gallon of dog milk.
Yeah,
Being Canadian.
so
Probably worse.
So fucking, somebody made like a really fake, obviously fake tweet by Martin Scorsese. And fucking Tyrese Gibbs was like, Martin Scorsese the GOAT, no cap about it or something.
That's funny. Oh, fuck.
That was a reference to Prozac, produced by Zach. It's just some guy who spams "Yay the GOAT, no cap" on every post by on Instagram until he became famous for it, and now he gets like interviews on like TJ Vlad or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I
They're
remember
like,
when I
how
used
do
to...
you write? How did you come up with the idea to be like "Yay the GOAT, no cap"? And he's like, I also rap.
Vlad TV has always had weird ass interviews, though. I like how one day Vlad would, like, have fucking Little Pump on the show, and then the next day he'd be like, this is some guy who raps down the street from me. Why don't you tell me about your life? And he'd be like, yeah, my 18 baby mamas, we smoked crack and I beat them. And he's like, wow, do you think you should be saying things like that? Don't you think that's self-snitching? And they're like, nah, the cops would never watch this. And then the next day, everyone's like, Vlad's a snitch, and got this guy arrested. It's like the Vlad cycle.
Anyways, back to this movie. Damn, it's like a classic Drunkview running a half hour. We're still on segment 1.
Because this movie's fucking insane.
There's a lot of shit to talk about because I was actually just about to go in on how his powers make no sense. I just had to pull something out of the hat of shit. We really should have like got a piece of paper, wrote down everything shitty about this
Yeah, the
movie, and
fucking-
just pulled it out of a hat.
Most of his powers are self-explanatory, but
Like, you kind of get the normal vampire shit, but like at the end, why can he call that horde of bats? Did
Well,
he call the bats?
no, there's the scene in the middle of the wall ball thing where he goes in the bat cage and he's
They
like,
all
the
love
bats
him.
love me and they're my friend.
Yeah, I get that.
And I guess because
Because
he's
they
nice
love
to
him
the
so
bats,
much.
they like him. But what doesn't make sense about him controlling the bats is why couldn't Doctor Who just throw the bats off?
Yeah.
Have you ever touched a bat? They weigh like 2 pounds.
Well, think about this too.
Their bones are literally
But
hollow.
they like him because he's of the same species as them now, or something. He said.
And so is Matt Smith.
But so is Matt Smith. So why couldn't
the bats-
wouldn't the bats like not want to attack Matt Smith?
Matt Smith
Was
literally
there a
has...
different formula that Matt Smith used that had less vampire in it? But why does he have the full vampire powers?
Matt Smith has super strength that can literally rip buildings apart with his bare hands, but he can't knock off a bunch of 8-pound bats.
Yeah.
But also, is that why Morbius can fly? Did it make his bones hollow?
That's what I thought the idea was.
Because there's the scene on the roof where Tyrese Gibbs teleports up to him, and he almost gets blown off by the wind. So is that... And I had no idea what was going on in that scene because they didn't say anything about that before. I was so confused what was going on because the wind is like all like rainbow colored, and he's like about to fall. I was just completely baffled out of my mind before Tyrese Gibbs showed up. But I think the idea is that the serum made his bones hollow so he can float on wind even though he doesn't have wings, and that's why he can fly in front of the train. Or so, I don't know what's going on. I have no fucking clue what's supposed to be happening at the time.
Right.
The rest of the powers are self-explanatory. to an extent, I guess. I don't know why being a hollow bone weirdo would let him punch holes in walls, but I guess the echolocation thing.
Sure. But here's the thing. It's not just the script that sucks, but also the editing. Not just the fact that they edited so much out, but the editing in general. Like, the editing for what's still there is also fucking horrendous.
Yeah, this is fucking awful.
This is literally probably the worst Hollywood movie I've seen in a hot minute.
Yeah,
Can you think of one? In the last year, even?
The last one on this comparative level is the first Suicide Squad.
Dude, I rewatched the first Suicide Squad like a year ago, and it's terrible. But I don't even think it's as bad as Birds of Prey, and Birds of Prey is worlds better than this. This movie is just so incompetent. Like, I've never... Like, this just felt like Sony's like, we can literally put any shit out and it'll make $1 billion. Look at these Venom movies. They fucking suck. And then they tried to do it. But the difference is, Venom, you look at Venom and you're like, oh, he kind of looks like Spider-Man. He's kind of cool. He's big. He's tough.
He kills
Those
people.
movies make $1 billion and everyone shows up. What isn't connecting with Morbius? First off, you pick a main actor who's poison to the superhero community.
He's poison.
Everybody who likes superhero movies knows that Jared Leto sucks. And I'm not saying that like Jared Leto does just suck, and he's not even really the problem with this movie. I wish this was just a video where we made fun of Jared Leto and said it was a good movie, but Jared Leto. This was a horrible movie, and Jared Leto was horrible, but Jared Leto is still somehow the best part.
Yeah.
You don't have a cool character. He's a vampire, but...
He's a nobody.
Oh, even you know what's comparable? I, Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But I would say this is worse, because the whole second...
I don't remember
I have never... Enough. This movie should have been 2.5 hours. And did I want to sit through 2.5 hours of an incompetently edited, incompetently shot, incompetently written movie? No. But Sony got delivered a 2.5 hour script, greenlit it, shot the shit, and then said, actually, we realized focus groups say that these movies should be shorter, and we can get 600 turns a day in each movie theater. Think about it. Batman, 3 hours long. Each auditorium can only play that 2 or 3 times a day. Morbius,
you can play that
in 90 minutes, you can play it 6 times a day, 7 times a day. You put it in 1 million times. So they think, okay, well, it's going to be busy as shit because it's a superhero movie. We're selling tickets, and they're not going to have to sit there that long. Especially if we get return watchers and shit. It's great. Problem is, you butchered your fucking movie doing it that way. And your movie was already a piece of shit. Because the bones are shit. But then you cut those bones into pieces and try to reconnect it into a fucking midget.
You took what was presumably a shit movie. I say presumably because we can't technically know, but I think it's pretty safe to assume. You took a shit 2.5 hour movie, cut it into a shit 90-minute movie.
Right.
And so you just have this disaster of editing, and then what do you do? What do you do from there? And I guess their strategy was to just make all the marketing deceive people into thinking it was related to Spider-Man, which I guess it is for 20 seconds at the end of the movie. But it has nothing to do with Spider-Man otherwise. I think literally their whole strategy was to try to trick people into thinking it was an MCU movie, so that people would be obligated to see it.
Well, they made it into an MCU movie.
Well, yeah, they technically did, but notice how all the marketing had everything that was related to Spider-Man in it, including Michael Keaton in a Michael Keaton scene that was entirely cut.
Yep.
And so I think it's pretty safe to assume
they literally paid Michael Keaton to show up to prove that it's connected to Spider-Man.
Yes, they wanted to trick people into believing this.
The end credit scenes were not well written because the only thing that those end credit scenes were in there for was to say, yes, this is required reading for the future.
I was thinking it over.
They're like, Michael Keaton may as well have said, you need to watch this movie, otherwise you won't understand Spider-Man 4.
I was thinking about this, right?
So stupid.
I'm pretty sure The reason Vulture is in the costume at the end is because it's a reshoot and Michael Keaton refused to show up.
Oh, definitely. I don't
'Cause-
even know if it's Michael Keaton talking because it doesn't really sound like him. So either
Yeah, I
the
don't know,
voice acting
but-
was all fucked up or what. But why
Well,
would
it's-
Michael Keaton want to do?
there's
Michael
a good
Keaton's
chance
probably got
that-
enough money, and Warner Brothers is probably paying him enough money. Why is he doing this shit? He's gonna be Batman.
Okay,
again.
imagine. So, we don't know what the original Michael Keaton scene looked like, but it's safe to assume that that was somewhere in like the middle of the movie when Morbius actually went to jail.
He said
Give
something
him
like,
a
"I'm a
reason.
friendly woodpecker."
Michael Keaton
Or something like
probably
that. I
made
don't
like
remember what it is.
$500,000 to show up for literally a half day and film one scene where he's in prison as a tie-in. And they didn't have any of this other shit planned.
There's a caveat where they're like, "We have 6 hours to get you in. We have 6 hours of fucking. We have 6 hours of overlay or ADR," and then they're like, "Look, so we didn't really end up using the scenes as you are, but we have this cool thing where Spider-Man rips through dimensions. So we'll have you ADR and say, 'Wow, I'm in a new dimension.'"
Yeah,
and then
and
we'll
Michael
show
Keaton,
your old footage,
Michael
and then
Keaton
we'll
said-
CGI a CGI man.
You know why he probably sounds fucked up? Michael Keaton probably said, "I'm on the set of the shitty Flash movie. Can I send you the voice recording from my iPhone?"
Yeah, they probably got MP3s that said sent via iPhone at the bottom of the fucking email.
I'm pretty sure
It
it's
makes
a
my
fucking-
brain hurt.
Yeah, it's such a fucking nightmare, dog. It's so bad.
Well, at least we have a lot of good things to look forward to this year
Like
for MCU
Brave and-
movies. Well, that's next year, Aiden. Don't get ahead of yourself. We got Thor: Love and Thunder. Wakanda Forever apparently is finally done. Apparently.
Done as
We got
edited,
Moon
or
Knight.
done as they finally stopped writing the script.
Apparently it's
overnight?
wrapped, according to Anthony Mackie. What does that mean? Does it mean it's done shooting finally, or done writing, or done editing? Who knows?
I assume it's not.
Something's
done
wrapped. Something's wrapped.
Wakanda for
You got-
we can't go into
You got
Wakanda
Moon
for
Knight.
everything.
You got She-Hulk. You
Moon Knight's
got
been pretty okay.
Miss Marvel. Moon Knight's been okay for one episode. We'll see how episode 2 goes. Because I'm not sold because they kind of changed Moon Knight entirely. They're like,
Yeah.
let's make Stephen Grant just a meme character. We're just gonna cut Jake out entirely. Then you got Mark Spector, who's not even in the show, and then Moon Knight. So they basically made him a shitty meme character, but we'll see if they try to actually.
Well, the
do something
pilot's
with
strong,
it.
but the pilot is also the easiest part. It's keeping the momentum going. That's the hard part. So we'll
It's
see.
elevating it because you kind of create this mystery behind the Moon Knight character. I liked it so far. We'll watch it. We'll watch it on Wednesday, and we'll watch the newest movie, Sonic. Come to the
Sonic,
AMC
and
Eden
also-
Prairie and visit me. Anyways, I basically said my thoughts on Morbius, so I'm just gonna not even bother having you pass it to me. Aiden, would you recommend Morbius?
No, it's barely a movie. It's a third of a movie shotgun together in editing that pretends to be part of the MCU to trick stupid people. It's scummy, it's bad. It's fucking boring. And you definitely should not watch it. Connor, would you recommend Morbius?
No, I would not. It fucking blows.
How much would this movie improve if Eminem made a rap song for it?
Significantly. Maybe not, but it would be funny.